I want to share something with you that's been an absolute game changer for me for how I run my businesses. If there's one thing that I can contribute the most to my success, I would have to say it's hiring the right people. You know, building up my team, finding great talent is something that truly excites me. But, you know, the truth is it's not always easy for a startup. You know, I live in places like New York and LA where it's super competitive and hella costly. So I've done what any great entrepreneur would, and that's become resourceful and look for the right business tools that allow me to accomplish my goals while working remotely. So I decided to choose WebEx. WebEx not only gives me the ability to work with my team remotely, anywhere, anytime, seamlessly, but it also gives me the ability to take these interviews and do it in a more collaborative and cost-effective way. I save time, money, and it gives me a competitive edge in the market. So thank you, WebEx. New day, new goals, let's own it, and we're back in the Hollywood Hills. I'm your host, Gerard Adams, and I'm excited because we're getting ready to meet up with two of the most powerful female conscious leaders that are on the planet. I mean, these two women are just millennial superstars. In fact, they're the CEO and president, co-founders of a company known as Boss Babe. Boss Babe alone has had over 6 million tags from women from all over the world tagging them. And this brand, in my opinion, is on track to become a $1 billion brand. I mean, they have over 2.4 million followers on the gram, and they're helping these women to be able to build and scale an online business to 6 figures and beyond. And they have done that for literally thousands of women with their society community. So let's get to it. The untold story of President and CEO of Boss Babe, Danielle Canty and Natalie Ellett. Natalie, Danielle, thank you so much for just like coming and spending some time with me. It's been such a pleasure to just build a friendship with you, to get to know you, and to just see your growth and what you've created. It's an absolute honor to be here today and share your story and your wisdom with our Leaders Create Leaders community. So thank you so much for taking time to be with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. The honor's ours, so thank you for inviting us.
How did this happen? How did you actually meet and then decide to partner up and build this business?
So, on my perspective, I was not in a great place at the time. So I had recently got married, and so I was filing to be able to stay in the country, and that kind of process is really, really difficult. And so in the midst of that, you can't be working. You very much have to put everything on hold, and I found that really hard. I was away from my family. I had no friends where we were living in San Francisco, and so I was kind of in that place where I just felt lost. I was just waiting for this letter to say I could finally work again. And so one of my best friends, Nick, she said, okay, I'm going to a Brendan Burchard conference. You're going to love it. You need to come. And I was like, nope, I'm not coming. I'm not in the right mindset. And she said, well, I've already bought your ticket and booked your hotels. So are you really going to let me down? And so I think that's the sign of a good friend. She really knew what I needed, and she wasn't willing to take no for an answer and kind of put herself on the line there. So I decided to go anyway. And you can kind of talk about how you came along, but...
And how we met from that. Yeah, so I'll tell you a bit about my backstory, and you know, like I alluded to earlier, I'm probably not as well known in the space, so my backstory is a little bit different, and not many people know it. So I was actually a chiropractor. So I studied chiropractic in the UK, and I had first of all got a job as a chiropractor, and then started and bought into businesses and was part of a primary healthcare brand within the UK, which I was growing and a big part of. But when my dad actually had a really bad skiing accident when we were in France one day, and he ended up being helicoptered off the mountain, having this horrendous surgery. He wasn't able to sit up for 3 months. We were like, is he even going to be able to walk? Like, what does this look like? And what happened in that moment was, well, over that course of the week that we were in France, I had to fly home because I had to be in work, and I had to be at a set point, a set day. Even though I was owning part of that business, I had to be there. And in that moment for me, I was like, wow, I have no freedom. And it dawned on me like how little control I had of my life, and I was just like, I don't want this. This isn't the life that I set out to create. And for me, like, something has to change. And so that set me on this journey around starting to understand like the online space, like what was it online, what skills did I have? And one thing I hear in my community, and we see a lot of people changing careers or starting new business, but like, oh, but what do I know? And I asked myself that question and realized that what skills could I take with me and what was transferable. And so I ended up thinking, okay, I'm not just gonna say I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do something about it. And so I decided to work with a coach who is Nick, who was also Natalie's friend. And as part of working with her, she said to me, okay, like, you know, invited her clients out to a Brendan Burchard event. I had no idea who Brendan Burchard was. I'd been to America once before, that was it. She was like, it's in San Diego, you should come. And so I was like, oh, really? It seems a bit extreme. Like, I'm still working at this point as well. So I used my holiday that I had to fly out to San Diego for this Brendan Burchard event. And then met Natalie.
Yeah, and the event was amazing, but we were there together with a bunch of Nick's other clients and friends, and I'm very much the kind of person, when I turn up to an event, I'm not playing around. Like, I am there for the minute the doors open, I've got my notebook, and towards the end of the day, the girls are planning on going out, drinking, and I was thinking, I can't do that. I want to be up early the next day, I want to be able to focus, I want to go read my notes, make sure I'm integrating, and I noticed Danielle was the exact same.
Virgo over here.
So Capricorn and a Virgo, you know, it's a great match. And so that night, instead of going out, we decided to go to dinner, and we just hit it off. And the next day, someone was leading a workout outside, and I was like, well, if we both go, we can spend more time together. Maybe I'll get to know her. I would like to have her as a friend. And that's kind of just how it happened. And after that event, we kept in contact, and I had an idea for a membership that I really wanted to create. Although I wasn't really working at the time, I was having ideas, and I was like, the minute I get my work authorization, I'm gonna hit the ground running. And I was doing tons of research into female entrepreneurship and understanding why women might not be succeeding. What are the big limiting factors to their success in entrepreneurship, or what's actually limiting them from getting into entrepreneurship? So I called Danielle one day and I said, can I just run this by you? I'm reading all this research, and she's also really research minded too. So we started talking about it, and a few days later she emails me a ton of research papers, and she was like, I've highlighted a few of these things, I think you'll find it interesting. And from that we just kind of fell into it. We realized that we both were passionate about the same thing. I personally don't love to do business alone. I think when you can bring people together, and when you can, you know, partner with someone that has the skills that you don't, you can really create something magical. And that was it, really. And then I convinced her to move to America, and the rest was history.
But I think that's just a really important point, isn't it? Because what we really realized is that we had a lot of complementary skill sets. So Natalie's so good at doing things I'm absolutely terrible at, and I like to think the other way around as well. And so we just realized that, hang on a minute, through conversations and just building, first and foremost, just a good relationship, we're like, oh, should we do this together? Yeah,
we just got married very quickly.
Yeah, it was
not real married for anyone listening, but like.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because like, you know, a real partnership in business is pretty much 100%. A marriage, you know, and I'm not married yet, but you know, I do know that relationships and partnerships, they create the most exponential growth and learning. And even I remember, like, when we worked together, like, you figuring out what those roles look like, and how to be able to step into those positions. So can you talk to me a little bit about like what that was like in the beginning? Like, once you guys both said full fuck yes, we want to do this, we want to build this business, like, how did you then really start to understand, like, okay, what role are you really going to play?
Well, I was going to say as well, I think what's really important to understand, we met in the September and we launched in the February. So this was a really short space of time. But I think one thing that we did, and we always continue to do, is allow it to evolve as well. Like, it was never initially around a down conversation around, okay, you're only doing this, you're only doing Y. Natalie and I both have the attitude that we always muck in, and we always just like, okay, there's a job needs to be done. It's like, okay, you know, have you got capacity? Have I got capacity? Who's going to do it? And we really allowed that to evolve and shape and understand what our skill sets were, because although you have things that you're definitely better at than the other, there's also things that neither of you done before, and there's things that you're learning as you're going. And so we just really approach everything that we do with, like, first of all, like a learning attitude, like, okay, well, let's figure this out, like, what does that look like, and we're here to learn and grow. And then second of all, like, okay, what do I enjoy doing, what do you enjoy doing, and like, who is this best suited to? And then we've, like, those conversations have just evolved as we've gone through things, and we can talk about how we've kind of shared things now, but it's definitely always an evolving piece.
Right.
Yeah, and when we first started the company, Danielle was actually still working as a chiropractor. So I was the only person working full time in the business, and Danielle was doing evening and weekends. So it was very much just assumed, okay, I'm going to take CEO, Danielle's going to take COO. And then once Danielle came into the business more full time, we started splitting that CEO role, which just didn't work for us. We realized naturally I'm such a visionary, and naturally Danielle's a visionary integrator. And so being able to split those roles was really powerful. And like Danielle said, it's very much evolving, and we're constantly looking at, if we take a new project on, who does what and how do we manage it. So, and I generally think that about a CEO or probably a CEO role generally, is there's no job description really for that role. You can assume, but every company is different and every growth phase is different. And because we both have elements, I'm more than happy to jump into Danielle's role and vice versa if we ever need to. And we're just going to take it as it goes. And then Danielle moved into the role of president, and we started to work with amazing people who were doing operations in the business and starting to build an actual team. So it really is just always building.
Wow, I love it. I actually want to go into building the team, but before we do, you were mentioning a lot about like what you've been learning in working with all these women that are stepping into entrepreneurship, and that they had. Did you see any commonalities of, now that you actually started this company and you yourself, I know Natalie, you actually had some entrepreneurial background from when you were like 13 years old. I heard you had a candy floss business, you were building websites at 13 years old. Danielle, I'm interested to know if you had that entrepreneurial spirit at a young age. So like, what have you learned both in your own experience and from your customers and your clients and all these women that are now like stepping into entrepreneurship? What have been those limiting beliefs or limiting factors that you've helped them to overcome so that they can step into owning their power?
So for me, this research started a really long time ago, because when I was in business school, I wanted to do my research paper on entrepreneurship, specifically young entrepreneurship, but I wasn't doing an entrepreneurship course. So I actually had to really push hard to be allowed to do it. And they finally gave me the red flag, and they were like, you're probably going to get less of a grade because you've not studied this before, but we'll let you do it anyway. And when I started digging into that research, I actually realized there was very little research being done on the motivations of young entrepreneurs. It was very much on older entrepreneurs. And so when we started coming together with the business, we were looking and we weren't seeing a lot of kind of research to tell us why women weren't succeeding, especially younger women weren't succeeding in business, or why they might not have been getting into it in the first place. And so we kind of started there, and a lot of it's been shaped by our own experience too, but we notice a big piece that holds women back is confidence. Confidence to leave a job behind like Danielle did, or confidence to turn down a graduate job and say yes to starting something that you have no idea about like I did. That takes a lot of confidence, and we see that holding a lot of women back. And second to this, which I think holds a lot of people back generally, is lack of taking action. How many times do people say, I had a business idea and this person went and did it before me. This person didn't go and do it before you. You just didn't do it. You didn't take action. And so those two things I think go hand in hand. And we've done tons of other research to see, that you need access to certain resources or certain community, different factors. But I think those two things are really common that we see.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we've seen that time and time again in the thousands of women that have been in our membership and program. And it is like a lot of the time, like women tend to, and men, but obviously we're really working alongside a lot of women, they really suffer with that confidence, that imposter syndrome. A lot of people kind of think, oh, they can do it because X, Y, and Z, versus, oh, I can do that because X, Y, Z.
Right. Yeah, I feel it's the mindset, right? Like helping to just, before you can give someone, because you can give someone the entire blueprint, but if they don't have that mindset that where they really believe in themselves and they believe that they can do it, it's like.
We always say as well, and I've heard this saying too, because it's like, building a business, it really is 80% mindset and 20% skill. You can, I wouldn't say that I am personally more skilled than the average person, but I have a mindset where I'm determined to, one, show up every single day and try my best. I am determined to take action and put a step forward, and I'm really not scared of failure. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds a lot of people back, is they're scared to fail, so therefore they don't even try. Versus going, well, actually, if I don't quit, then I haven't failed. Failure is only there when you actually give up and say, okay, I'm defeated. Well, I just know that I'm showing up, and I'm not going to be defeated, particularly not by myself. So when you have that attitude, and when you can kind of go, okay, well, I don't know how to do that, but do you know what? I'm going to find out, or I'm going to ask this person. That's what I think really makes the difference.
And just building on that too, when COVID hit, obviously for a lot of businesses, it was this big, oh my goodness, I have a lot of employees to pay. How am I going to get through this? And there was so much uncertainty around it. And for the first few days that COVID hit, we were seeing just so much movement happening in the economy, and a lot of businesses going bust, and we were faced with these big payroll bills. And we noticed the conversation we were having was very different to the conversation we normally have. It was, how do we survive? How do we get through this? And normally we're very good at stepping back and seeing different opportunities, and we normally have a really positive mindset, and we didn't. And once we caught that, we were able to sit down and really pull back and ask, how are we going to work with this? We can't just sit and wish that it's not happening, or hope that it's going to be gone in a couple of weeks, because we just don't know. We'd never been through anything like that. And I think it's having that mindset of constantly being willing to pivot and reevaluate and just try things. We tried so many things that we didn't know if they were going to work, or if we'd look silly, but we tried them anyway.
And also, I think the other thing that we do is we really ask ourselves, like, it's not happening to us, we see things as happening for us. So with COVID-19, it's obviously a very hard, a very challenging situation for lots of people for a variety of reasons. So what we chose in that moment, yes, we did have the space where we were like, oh my goodness, like there's panic here slightly, and then we calmed ourselves down and okay, what is this teaching us? What is this? What are we allowing this to show us? Wow. And how can we really reevaluate our business to move forward through that? So Natalie and I, we definitely have had challenges, and we always try and look at them, okay, what is it, where is this steering us towards? Like, how is this happening for us versus being victims and being like, oh, this is happening to us. Like, we always try and see, how can we take back control or change the pathway slightly. We say, well, in fact, you create that ebook, Pivot, Don't Pause. And that's what really helped us move through COVID.
Yeah. That was so powerful. And and if you're not on their email list, I'm telling you right now, you have to sign up, because even just for the research of seeing how they are constantly experimenting and trying new things, and it's inspiring. And I remember, you had that pivot, the pivot versus the pause, and you also had, like, instead of survive, thrive, and you were just like, you were going with it, and it seemed like you were able to kind of just take that uncertainty. And I believe, for me, being an entrepreneur for 18 years, like, that is probably one of the greatest skill that you can have, is learning to adapt. Like, that's just the name of the game. Like, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. None of us do. None of us know. 2020 will be a year we'll remember forever, but none of us know, right? Like, COVID, it's like, we were laughing about it off camera. It's like, we just have to wear masks at some point, going into a restaurant, but then you can take them off, you can go to the gym, but you don't have to wear gloves. It's like, there's such uncertainty even with COVID and just the economy, that you have to just be willing to constantly adapt and try new things. And you are doing that at the highest level. It's really, really cool to see. So I want to talk a little bit about what have been, like, obviously, just like any partnership though, there's struggle, right? Like, there are those moments that are like true moments of adversity, both for you as partners, like, and just like for the business. And I just want to know, like, what has helped you to overcome those deep moments of adversity that you've had? And have you had moments with each other, like any good partnership, where you're like, you had to like really work through it and learn how to communicate with each other, and like there was those moments where like you thought about potentially quitting, was there ever a moment like that for you? Or with the business where you really thought to yourselves like, I don't know if this is going to work?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been times where we've been in tears on the phone and said, I don't want to do this anymore. We had a retreat about a year ago when Danielle flew out, she wasn't living out here, and I just sat and cried and said, I don't think I even want to do this anymore. And I was so burned out and overwhelmed that I just didn't want to keep going, and I couldn't keep going in the way it was. And that was a moment that we made a decision that we don't burn out. And to just make that decision has made all the difference for us, because we work hard, we have really big goals, and we were just pushing, and we realized at that moment, this isn't worth it. To drive yourself to that much stress and that much upset, why are we doing any of this? It's not worth it. And so we've definitely had those moments, and this isn't a challenging moment, but say for example, you know, a lot of companies similar to us raising venture capital, and we keep seeing them raising tons of money, and we're very much self-funded, and we made that decision. There's been moments when things like that happen that we question everything. Are we really doing this the right way? Or they have way more experience than us. Should we pivot and change our mind about that? But it always comes back to, why are we doing this in the first place, and what are our values? And I think it's kind of the same for us having, we absolutely do have conflicts. It's like being in a marriage for sure, but it always comes back to our values, and we have values for the business, and we have values for our relationship, and we're very clear about how we want to be treated and how we don't want to be treated. And I don't think we've ever really had a moment where we've disrespected each other.
No. Wow. No, and I think, you know, that term does get thrown around, but Natalie and I are both married, but we really do have our partnership as a marriage as well, and we put a lot of effort into it, and I think that's something that I don't ever think should be underestimated or taken for granted. Like, we have, you know, Natalie alluded to it, we have values to the business, but then we have values each other, and we're really good at communicating them. So my values are different to Natalie's, and so she will, you know, we'll have conversations that are more inclined to help my values if I'm having a struggle, and vice versa with hers. And I just think one thing that we've been really, really clear of, we never say things that we can't take back. Like, we really try and make sure that we always have utmost respect for each other, but we also come to listen and learn. And at the end of the day, Boss Babe, again, we kind of say it's like our baby, right? We're here to look after the baby, and sometimes there's hard conversations, and you know, one person's ego might get triggered, and it might be like hard, but actually you're like, okay, well, we have this baby here that we need to do good by, and it's so much bigger than either of us as well. Like, you know, you talk about why we do this. Well, we do this so that we can help more women achieve their ambitions, so that we can help more women build their own wealth, so we can help more women start their own businesses, so we can have more female CEOs sitting on boards, or, you know, like, that's why we do it. And so that we always remember that. And so any of those conflicts, like, you know, there have been conversations and we haven't necessarily agreed, so then we're like, okay, well, what is best for Boss Babe? And that might mean, like, Natalie's right, it might mean I'm right, or it's not even that at the end of the day. At that point, it's like, okay, what's right for the business? And we have to leave our egos at the door and move forwards. And I think that's how, you know, we continue to show up, and I think that's why we've got to the place that we have pretty quickly, is because we're always able to put two brains. Isn't it the definition of mastermind, or is it Albert Einstein that said, you know, you can only reach that third brain when two brains come together. Like, it creates a brain that neither the two would be able to create on their own. That's Natalie and I. Wow. We wouldn't get to where we are without us putting our heads together, and that's what makes it kind of special, and that's what the relationship that we protect.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, and we just have certain principles in our relationship that we have in other relationships too, but in business, there's always going to be a lot of emotion involved. There's just no way getting around that. And say one of us gets super triggered by something and storms out or cries or whatever, we don't ever hold that against the other person. And I think that's always been really powerful, because I think we both can feel very emotionally safe to just have a moment and just be, and just say that we feel however we're feeling. And I think that kind of emotional safety in a relationship is really important, because it means you feel safe to throw out a really stupid idea, or it means that you feel like you can just say, I feel like an imposter right now, and you have someone there that can see you and remind you of who you are and why you're doing any of this. And I think that's a big reason that I wouldn't ever want to do business alone too, because it can be incredibly lonely, and that's a big reason that we wanted to create the society. And Boss Babe generally was, how do we fix this problem of loneliness?
Yeah. Talk to me about, like, how you've systemized all those divisions in your business so that you actually can be in your zone of genius. And also, what I thought was so dope when we worked together, you were like, if you took a vacation, you would make more money. And that's when I was like, wow, like you have truly systemized this company, because that's when you have a real business, right? It's not where like you are building a lifestyle around your business, but your business is, you know, basically built around your lifestyle, where like if you wanted to, you can pull back, take that vacation, and like your community is still thriving. And I think that is what creates a real movement. And I feel Boss Babe is built a movement. I mean, this is something that is taking a life of its own. You're still 110% committed in growing it, but what's really cool is, and I remember this is what happened with Elite Daily. I mean, it got to a point where like, almost like word of mouth marketing, these women will ride or die for this community. This society is growing by the thousands, and it's really powerful. But right before it really takes that life of its own and becoming a movement, there does need to be the machine and the system. So can you talk to us a little bit about, for the entrepreneur who is still in those early stages, has those foundations, but now is feeling burnt like you did at that time, and actually needs to now create the systems in their business so they can scale? What was that like for you when you got to that point? And you know, what are some tips that you have for an entrepreneur that is ready to implement those systems? One thing that I would say that I learned really, really on in business is you won't be successful if you're not consistent. Consistency is everything. And I think back to beginning stages, posting 4 times a day on Instagram before the invention of scheduling apps, and days when I was hungover and it was Sunday and I didn't want to be posting at 7 a.m. and I still did it. Even back then, systemizing what you're doing so that you can be more consistent is really, really important. And so I think whether you're listening and you have, you know, you're a month in, or whether you have an entire team, systems doesn't need to be this big, complicated, operationally minded thing. It's more about how can I do what I'm doing in a more optimized, consistent way. And that's what you will have known that from Elite Daily. But okay, if I'm not posting X amount of times a day and I drop the ball, right, or I'm sick for a day, or I lose Wi-Fi, my business doesn't run. And so I don't want people thinking that systems and operations is confusing, because I think it often can be perceived that way. It's super simple. It's, do you want your business to be consistent and run whether you're there or whether you don't? Powerful. And how can you build the machine to help that? I think you've mentioned that really well, Natalie, because it can be like, oh my goodness, like, you know, I need to have all these things working perfectly. And it's about taking a breath and just looking at it, going, first of all, like Natalie said, like, what do I need to be consistent with? And how can I make my life easier to be consistent doing that? And that actually doesn't always need to be like a massive web of technology. It can literally be like, okay, well, do you know what? I need to post 4 times a day, and I'm going to create a system where this first and the fourth Monday of the month I create, and they're my creating times, and I block that out on my calendar. So I think really just understanding, it's more like in the initial stages, more like habit forming, that then start creating the systems. Then I would say a couple of pieces to look at is, you know, like, what are you doing over and over again that actually is not taking much brain power? What is just a repetitive task? And looking at that and going, okay, can a machine do it, or a person do it, and outsourcing it, and really just starting to break down what you're doing. I think what we see a lot is entrepreneurs get so in it that they can't even have the space to pull out of it to fix it. Yeah. Exactly. You don't want to be in your business all the time. You want to be working on it. So whether it's like hiring, we always really try now, not hire too late. That's a mistake that we have made before. And then you end up so in it because you needed that team like a month ago. Whereas we always try and look at it now and go, okay, how can we make sure that we don't end up going back into it again because we've got the team following behind us? And the same with systems. So now we're looking at, you know, what systems can we create and build, not that are going to service us right now, but that we know we're going to need in like 2 or 3 months or 6 months. Okay, so just really, like, first of all, I say looking at what you're doing in the habit forming, looking at, you know, what are you doing over and over again that really some technology could help you with and support you with, that you can delegate to.
People. A third one is looking if you are taking data from place to place. There's normally a good system around that. So let's say, for example, you're gathering data on
your website.
Yeah, like your website, and then you're having to go in and find that information and take that to another place. What plugins are there that sync those 2 places up? They're also really good systems to create. So they're kind of like 3 like real areas that you should look at, but it so isn't complicated. And one thing I'm just going to say to kind of give a sigh of relief to all the operations people out there is that systems are never complete. There's always more systems you want to build, and that's like what's really nice about it. You can always perfect, you can always see ways that you can do things better, and just taking one step at a time is the biggest thing for me that I've learned. I always want to be like, okay, there's 10 steps, I want to jump to the 10th step straight away, and just really taking a step back and going, okay, like let's do step 1 and step 2 first, and go up in a logical way.
And a really specific example of a system or something would be, you know, we didn't really want to create anything beyond the Instagram until we dialed that in, and we got it to a point where Instagram was just running like clockwork. It was scheduled for months and months in advance. And so we decided to create a podcast. This was about a year and a half ago. And so we created the podcast. I'm a Capricorn. I'm consistent through and through, like it's in my blood. But Danielle she called me one day, she was like, we need to do this in seasons. It's taken up way too much of my time. I'm done with recording. And I said to her, absolutely not. I'm putting my foot down and we're not going to seasons. We're saying we are going to be doing it week on week, rain or shine. And I said, pick one day a month and just, that's your podcast day. You don't do anything else. And that shift just made a massive difference. And so we've never missed a week. In fact, we got it up to 3 times a week. We were publishing 3 times a week. And that's a simple system. It's okay, I'm finding that I'm recording 6 episodes a month, random Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It's tiring. I'm constantly context switching. I'm a big fan of time blocking and staying in context. So I said, find one day a month and record that one day and then never think about it till the next month again. And it's things like that. You can systemize your business, but you can systemize your life. What are you doing day in, day out that you could actually just batch and make easier? It's the same with meal prep. I meal prep, I chop things up on a Sunday, I put things in containers, I plan my meals, and it's one less decision that I have to make in a day. And so it's not just business. Systems can be applied to all different kinds of things in your life.
Yeah, making that one decision that makes 1,000 others, you know, as Brian always talks about. You know, how do you prioritize your life? You know, you're talking about it a little bit, but like, that's one of the biggest things that we see with a lot of the entrepreneurs we work with, that they are overwhelmed. That word is thrown time and time again. I don't know if you see that a lot in the entrepreneurs you work with. Is they just feel so overwhelmed, like there's just not enough time in the day, right? They're on this hamster wheel. Like, so how do you go about really prioritizing your time?
I choose not to get overwhelmed. I used to get overwhelmed and I don't anymore. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, right? Where you love what you do so much that it doesn't feel like work. This is probably the number one reason that you end up burning out, because it doesn't feel like work, so you work all the time.
Yeah.
And the moment that I realized that and caught it changed everything for me, because there are times when, just last night we ended up having a brainstorming session. I'm cooking dinner, my husband's an entrepreneur as well, so we're both throwing out ideas at each other. We're like, should we hit the whiteboard? And before you know it, it was like 8, 9 o'clock, and I could have kept going till midnight, till 3 a.m. And it was a boundary, and we were like, let's leave this here. We can come back to this always. And I think we both really, really talk about not wanting to sacrifice the now for the then. You know, if we can't be happy now, we won't be happy then. And I think you can get in that mindset, can't you, of chasing. I'll be happy when I finally make this much money, or I'll be happy when I have an assistant, or when I have a team. It really doesn't work like that, and we only have the now, and we need to remember that. And I personally really choose to live my life in the now, and nothing comes above my peace, my happiness, my family, my friends. My work doesn't come before that. And my work is something that I do. It lights me up, it fulfills me. It's such a deep purpose of mine, but I'm not my job. I'm not defined by my success. I'm not defined by what I do between the hours of 9 to 5. And I used to feel like that. I used to feel like a lot of my self-worth was derived by my achievements and my success and how many hours I worked. And I just don't anymore. And I think that's been a big shift for me.
Wow, that's huge. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, you're so right. I think it's so easy. I'm an achiever in my Enneagram as well. And so for me, it's always been like, what's next? And I really always believe in like being super vulnerable. Like I never want someone to think, oh, like they have it all together all the time. And for me, it's been a real journey. I know it's something that I've had to work on, because I was very easily the person who would literally work 16 hours in a day if you let me. I was like easily like get in it, love doing it, like I'm like, here, I want it, let's go.
Me too.
And so for me, it's been, And I used to hate it when people say, oh, you got to have that balance. And I used to be like, I don't have balance. I don't know what this word means. Like, I'm all in, like, I'm going for it. And so it's been a really learning process. And I've realized now it's about creating harmony.
Oh,
and
you took the words out of my mouth. I was literally thinking that.
just
So beautiful.
like allowing myself to, first of all, I've done a lot of inner work and realizing, you know, just like Natalie said, like, I'm not measured by my success, and I am more than just, you know, the COO and president and boss babe. There is more to that, and I've started welcoming that in and really understanding how that can ground me as a leader. So I think this is a misconception a lot of people, is like, you know, if you're not sat at the laptop and you're not doing these things, or you're not reading X, Y, and Z, or you know, hustling hard, you're not going to achieve. But for me, real leadership is such a rounded skill that I've started realizing actually there's life experiences that I want to and should make time for, because that actually means that I can take them back to my role and offer a fresh perspective.
And even more energy.
Exactly, and that is something that I didn't get initially, like I didn't realize it, and it's something that I've learned along the way. And now I'm, you know, you'd have been proud of me the other day. I was like, oh, I don't work past 7 o'clock, so you need to like make sure you're contacting me before then.
I'm proud.
Yeah.
My work here is done. I'm a big believer.
I'm evolved.
I'm a big believer in that you teach people how to teach you. You treat people. No, how do I say it? I'm a big believer in that you teach people how to treat you based on how you treat yourself.
Yeah.
And for example, I would notice Danielle having meetings on her calendar late at night, and I'd ask why she'd have them on there. Well, that's only time they had, right? Just not throwing you under the bus, that's just a good example.
No, I was amazing at self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's probably, like, I needed to be. I lived in the UK,
Yeah.
but it got us to where we are, but it was not a vet.
Yeah.
You can tell the story.
Whereas I'm a big believer in boundaries, and I have so many boundaries. I don't do meetings before 9 a.m. unless...
Me neither.
I mean, it would have to be crazy circumstance. When Danielle lived in the UK, I had to do it earlier, and I really didn't love it, and I was very vocal about saying, this is changing, this is changing. I don't do meetings between my lunch hour. I have blood sugar issues. I'm not going to sacrifice my health for any meeting, no matter who it is, what it is. So between 12 and 1, I don't take meetings. I don't take meetings past 6 p.m. I don't work on weekends. So I have these really clear boundaries, and I put it in my calendar, and I sometimes put a big thing in my calendar saying, do not book meetings with me. And my team know, and it also, I think that really leaks into the culture. So my team feel really comfortable putting it in their calendars and saying, don't book meetings with me, or offline, or whatever. But we are really different in that sense. And I've been burned out before. I think I probably got it a bit before you did. I got so burned out that I was like, I'm not doing this again. And having those boundaries and seeing you now put those boundaries in place, I think has been a game changer. Because if you let Danielle work, she'll work. We used to do retreats, just the two of us, and she'd keep going, and I'm asleep on the sofa. Like, I'm gonna go to bed now. It's too much for me.
I have a lot of energy, and I definitely, you know, my ability to suffer, I can do it. I'll keep going. But I've realized that that's not going to help me in the long run now. And I think that it's an evolving process, but I also think it actually starts a lot with self-worth. And if I really look at the root of that, I think for me, being very, very honest, like that's where it came from. I felt like I had to go above and beyond to make sure I was worthy as what I was achieving, versus being able to switch that dialogue. And I think this is one of the biggest things. We started off this conversation by saying, do you know what? Entrepreneurship is 80% mindset, 20% skill.
Yeah.
Unless you can really wrap your head around your own confidence, your own taking action, your own self-worth, then it's very difficult to actually get where you want to without having that solid foundation. Again, that we spoke about earlier.
If you think about how many people are always busy, like when you ask them, how have you been, what have you been up to? Oh my God, I've been so busy. I used to think that meant successful, they're working hard, their values are in place. I used to associate good things with that. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I wanted to reframe that for myself and for other people. And so I make a point of talking about my boundaries, and I make a point of doing it, especially with the women in our community, because I'm like, hey, if I can do it, so can you. Like, we can all have boundaries here. So let's talk about boundaries as if it's as sexy as being busy. Let's talk about all of our free time as much as we would talk about being busy, and let's talk about that and flaunt that versus your calendar being back to back and changing that conversation.
I love that. Yeah, just as much as it's important to delegate to your team, like eliminating the things that are not energizing you, right? So I think that's so powerful. And boundaries is something that even me, myself, like I didn't learn that for the majority of my career because the hustle works. So it's scary because you, by doing and putting in all that grind, you know, you can start to make the money, you know, the millions of dollars, all these things, but then it takes you a while to finally realize that like you're depleted, you know, that you're not actually happy and truly fulfilled. So it's for me, it's been this beautiful balance now of grinding and living, but enjoying it and really having that moment to be in the present and just taking the time to, you know, really focus my energy on the things that are going to move the needle, but then also knowing when to stop, when it's time for Gerard to go and meditate or travel or whatever it is that's for Gerard, right? Because I know and you know that ultimately by you investing in yourself and giving yourself that space to fill your cup and to love yourself, you are going to show up so much more powerfully when you do step back into work, when you meet with your clients, when you talk to your team, when you lead. Because I remember when I led from that place of being burnt, I thought that I was being a great leader, but it was until like I actually broke down and was vulnerable and my team was like, thank you for being vulnerable and finally having this realization and taking time for you, because A, they saw how much I needed it as a leader, but B, it allows, like you just said, your team to start evaluating and allowing them not to work themselves freaking till death, right? Like they now end up putting boundaries in their life. They now can be taking time to go and fill their cup, and then everyone now can like just have that energy and respect and have that respect for each other and really work towards that common mission. So I think it's really beautiful. I want to talk a little bit about money mindset, because I know that that's something that you attack a lot. I know it's something that I myself had to go through, similar to the unworthiness issue, to the point where like I would make millions of dollars and I still felt like I didn't deserve it almost, or I was scared of it. And I have a ton of clients, right, that go through that feeling of like, you know, just thinking it's hard to get, it's you know, that they can't ever really amount to getting to the millions of dollars. What have you seen as like some of the common limiting beliefs around money, and like what do you teach women in order for them to like really shift into that abundance mindset and really start attracting like big money, you know what I mean, like real wealth, and actually being able to create financial freedom in their life?
One of the things that we see a lot is women really feeling like money is scarce. They live in this like scarcity mindset, and I think this is like really apparent actually a lot of the time with big female communities that I've been experienced in the past, and why we were so you know, for us it was so important to create something different, and that was like, you know, money is scarce, so it's all about competition. And so one of the mottos that we really sing a lot in Boss Babe is like collaboration over competition. And you know, I think that can go across so many different dimensions, but particularly with money, like, you know, we've collaborated and we've made way more money than I feel like we would have done on our own. And so really just kind of speaking to women in that sense has been really powerful, and particularly within society, they collaborate and they create so much more wealth together, which has just been really, really amazing to see. And then, like I said, that scarcity piece, not only on that understanding, but also for me, I never grew up with, I had a very average UK upbringing. We were by no means wealthy, but we really weren't poor either. And so I learned with my limiting beliefs that, you know, money did not grow on trees. You know, also bad people had money. And so, you know, those are things that I have had to overcome personally, but I've also seen within our communities people understanding the reframe around like, actually, do you know what, if I make a lot of money, I can actually do more good with it, and really understanding what that money means to them and seeing it rather than entity, but versus like more like an energy that's going to flow and they can do positive things with versus like negative.
I love that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say all women have those money mindset issues, but we do see it as one of the common ones. I think for me, I didn't grow up with a lot of money at all. In fact, quite the opposite. And for me, kind of figuring out this whole money mindset thing and even understanding what it was a lot around awareness. So what else exists? What are other people doing? Because I didn't see people making millions of dollars. I thought that was just, this small percentage of people that just would never happen to me. But it's when you start to get around people that speak differently, think differently, are doing differently, you're reading books, you're listening to podcasts, you're watching videos, you're surrounding yourself with a different narrative. That awareness alone, I think, can completely change your money mindset, because if you are constantly surrounded by these ideas and people talking about money as energy and only one of the currencies, and you start to associate it as something a little bit lighter than that, oh God, that thing that I'm never going to be able to get. And so that was the big thing for me, honestly, where, I came from a tiny little place in the northeast of England, and coming out to LA, just being around different people and watching these videos and listening to podcasts and hearing people's stories of, wait, they came from the same background as me, and look what they've been able to create. It instantly kind of broadened what I thought was possible. And the minute you broaden your awareness, anything is possible. Yeah. But you have to be aware of it for it to be possible for you. And so I just made a big point of surrounding myself with people that really inspired me. I didn't know them, but I thought that I did, on podcasts and everything, and really put that time into developing my own money mindset and getting over those problems. And then again, just seeing it as just one currency. There's so many different currencies out there. Your time is one, your network is one. Yes, of course, your net worth as well, but it's just one of many, and it's all energy. And so it will, like you say, it comes to you easily, it can leave easily. And thinking about what you get when you swap that currency for something else. When we first starting a business is expensive. And when we were first starting, I didn't want to put money into anything, but I start to see it as, okay, what's the energy exchange that I'm getting for this piece of currency? What am I getting back in return? What am I able to build? What's the IP that I'm getting from this? And that really, really helped. But honestly, if you're struggling with money mindset, I really recommend you just have a podcast, a video, or you read a book, something every single day that up-levels your awareness and shows you what is possible. I'm a big believer that if she can do it, so can I. Or if he can do it, so can I. And so who are those people that you are looking up to? Who are those role models that are showing you what is possible? And even better, if you can find role models that come from where you come from and have done a similar thing to what you want to do.
Wow, so powerful. At what point did you have to invest into your business? And what was that like? Like in the beginning where it was just like, was there a point and how much did you have to say okay, we need to reinvest into what we're building here? What was that like for you in the beginning stages, especially being bootstrapped and not having venture capital?
Well, in the very beginning, we bought some of the Boss Babe IP.
Right.
And so that was huge for us. That was a massive investment for us both to come together and put that money in before we even knew anything was going to be a success.
Correct,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Shout out to Alex.
We love Alex. Yeah. And so that was before we think about website or anything, we had to put money in to actually buy IP. That was terrifying.
Wow.
We had no idea if it was going to work. We were just kind of putting this money on the line and hoping, but
You said we had no idea. We knew.
Well, we knew.
We knew it was going to work. And I think you do sometimes. I think you
yeah, that's true.
In reality, no, we didn't know it was going to work. But there was I remember being
on paper,
challenged.
we didn't.
Yeah, I remember being challenged by an amazing businessman I know who was a millionaire. And he was like, don't think you should do this. I think this is a terrible idea. And I was just like, I disagree. I know in my heart this is the right thing to do. So sorry.
No, that's very true. I think that's a good reframe. I think intuitively we had this feeling, but there was no kind of thing on paper.
Yeah.
I have to credit my husband for this, because I remember sitting at dinner with him and this was a big decision for us financially, and I was like, I want to go off and do this thing, and I don't really know if it's going to work, and it's going to take a big chunk of our money. Should we do it? And he was like, absolutely. We should not even think twice about this. And he calls that confidence transference. If you have the confidence in that moment that the other person has, give it to them, transfer it to them. If they, they look up to you, they respect you, they have so much confidence in you. If you can then reflect that back to them, and that comes back to being a leader too, whether you manage people or you don't. If you're a leader of some sense, you engage in confidence transference. And if there are people looking up to you, how can you, in the moment when they need it, reflect back to them the confidence they see in you? And he really did that for me. And I don't know that I would have taken the leap. I was absolutely terrified. But so that was definitely in the beginning, and it really paid off for us. Wow. And then we invested slowly. We built our entire website. I built our entire website from scratch with, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, looking back, it was not the prettiest website. It didn't perform exactly the way we needed to, but guess what? It got us surpassed $1 million. And this one website that I built, I was up till midnight every single night putting this thing together. And then the minute we were making money and we felt like it was, safe to reinvest it, we were like, okay, the first thing we should do is get the website rebuilt. And so we put money back into that. But we talk a lot about what's your minimal viable product. For us, I knew I could build us a website that would function and would help us make money. Yes, it wouldn't be fancy. It wouldn't look like anyone else's in the space, but it would work. And we knew that our content and what we were doing was far better than anything else out there. And so we really banked on that. And so what's your minimal viable product? You don't have to go out there and spend a ton of money to make something a success. Just create the minimum thing, and once it starts generating money, put that money back into it. And we didn't take money out of the business for quite a while. I mean, you especially later, because Danielle was still working as a chiropractor and was still, was very intentional about saying, I'm not taking a salary, you can take salary, I've got my salary, you just work on this stuff more, and then eventually I'll come out, and we did it that way. So just making the sacrifices that you need to make, but you don't need fancy websites. We didn't invest in logo and branding till we'd made over $1 million. We had no logo and branding. We didn't even have a color scheme. But you don't need it.
No, we were just passionate about where we were going and what we were delivering, and we wanted to make change. And I think that's what we became obsessed with, not with all the nice to haves and the aesthetics. And I think we talked about this earlier, looking at other companies raise, and we had those moments like, oh, should we be raising money here? Maybe we should be putting somebody else's money into this versus our own. We can take more off the table. But what we realized with is like, actually, we needed to have proof of concept. We knew that if we could actually create a business and we could make money and we could sell something that people actually wanted, then when we were reinvesting into that, we knew we were reinvesting to things that were already proven as well, right? And so it's never been then that because we did it that way, we've not had to operate out of scarcity, because we've always just invested in what we could at the time. We've never overextended ourselves. We've always looked at things we spoke about earlier. What are the needle moving things? So we have conversations around if we've got this pot of money, we're going to invest in the business. Let's actually look at it wisely versus going, oh, let's just throw money at it and see what happens. We've always been like, okay, the money's working here, let's put more into here. And so I think that's sometimes a conversation that I don't think necessarily gets had as much as it should. Like, put the money where it's working, and you've got to test a few bits right early off, and you've got to have some gut intuition, but then start looking at what's working and reinvest into those pieces.
So on that part, what would you say are the 3 biggest lucrative levers that you have pulled over the years that have helped you to really scale your company?
Team being the first one.
100%.
Bringing on talent, bringing on people that are smarter than you in areas that you have no idea about, bringing in really, really good people that can point out your blind spots and can help you scale. So important.
And I'm going to say, and letting them as well, because I think this is one big thing I see with leaders sometimes, is they have their egos and they don't like to be told that someone knows better than them. And I think that's what's really been, we've really tried to embody with our leadership. We're like, hey, you know better than us. You tell us, what do you think we should do here? And then we can have that open discussion. I think that's how we've allowed team to be such an incredible asset for us. 2, mentorship. I really believe in learning from people who have been there, done that. We worked with you. We want to work with people who have been where we want to go. And we look for mentors in very specific areas. If we're wanting to build an editorial platform, if we're wanting to build out and scale our Facebook ads, look for someone who has been there and done it really successfully, and go and ask them how. Because you can spend your nights Googling and build, and it will work. You'll figure that out eventually. But to me, it's worth investing the money to save the time. Like we said, time is a currency too. Just like money is, time is way more finite than money. So if you can invest your money in saving time, I think that's another really important one. And then 3rd, I'm a marketing person, so I'm definitely going to say marketing, but I think once you get something working,
and you've really tested it, and you're seeing how much it costs to acquire a customer, and you can get that scaling, you can really scale your business. And so that's been a big thing for us, is really dialing in our business and figuring out how much does it really cost us to acquire a customer. And so if we decide to put marketing budget behind that, because we built a business with millions and millions of dollars of revenue before investing a single penny in advertising. Everything was organic, and we were kind of scared to change that and scared to invest in marketing. But once we had gotten to a point where we really understood that everything was working, we knew who our ideal clients were, going out there and spending money on advertising means that you can acquire clients and customers from way beyond your community and expand that as well. So those are my 3. Would you agree with those?
Yeah, no, I would. I'm like, 100%.
Great, nailed it, done.
You know, in building, you have the largest now membership base out of anyone who's trying to even come close to competing with building a community of ambitious women in the female entrepreneurial space. What tips do you have for those that are looking to build a membership platform, that want to build out that community? What would you say would be some tips that you would have for them in accomplishing that goal?
I think for me, it's all around like the transformation that you're offering somebody as well. Like with any product and with any membership, like what is it that they're going to get from joining up? We're really passionate about always making sure that anything we deliver on, whether it's a membership or the courses, delivers results. So what is the result of them joining, and really getting so fully aligned with that and committed to delivering that it's worth them joining. We can go into all the technical pieces, but there's another one that really stands out for me, and that is making sure like it's people tend to, with memberships, they join for the content, but they stay with the community. And that's like a big piece that we've learned in our particular field. I know it might be different, but for other types of memberships, but for those, that's been a really, really big one. And really just allowing people, for us, we started the society because we were lonely as entrepreneurs, right? And so we really wanted to make sure we fulfilled, the result was making sure we helped others overcome loneliness, and also then got them results to move their business forward. So really just focusing on that and making sure that yes, the content was good, but we put a lot of time and energy into nurturing that community and making sure it was a safe, amazing place that people wanted to be at over and over again.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I would say is progress. So obviously you covered value. What is the real value of them joining this? Because it's not a one and done thing. It's something that's coming out every month. So bringing them in with that community, and then progress. Because with a membership, they're going to see that come out of their bank account every single month, especially if they're tracking their finances, which we all should be, every single month coming out of their bank account. And they're going to want to know, what did I get for this? Have I made any progress? And so within any kind of membership, you want to build some kind of system that allows people to see progress. So whether it's a tick box, whether it's a roadmap, whatever it is, you want them to be seeing that every single month they are one step closer to whatever goal they're working towards. I join all kinds of memberships. So one of them, for example, is health. I'm not just going to stick with a membership that I'm paying for every single month if I'm not really seeing how it's moving the needle for me. And so I really look, when I go, into their dashboards, I really pay attention to the UI, and I look at where are the tick boxes, where is this roadmap, and you really see it in successful memberships. They understand that progress part's really, really important.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll add too, from working with you, that you care so much, like genuinely, like as crazy as it sounds, right? You care so much about everyone. And you mentioned this even in the bootstrapping. You were like, before we doubled down on spending money on paid advertising, you had built $1 million, 7-figure business with just like kind of just getting real results and word of mouth and organic marketing. And I feel like a lot of times we get caught up in trying to figure out how to scale with paid marketing and getting new customers before we even figure out how to take care of the ones we already have. And the one thing I feel that you have time and time again have done over these years is like, you're focusing in on your customers that you already have. And yes, now you've gotten unbelievable at marketing to get new customers, of course, but like, the value of what every customer that joins, and really looking at that LTV and nurturing them for a long period of time.
Because it costs as well, like 10 times more to acquire a new customer than it does one of your existing ones. So really just like always asking and learning. Again, I feel like it's been a real common theme with like, we've always been willing to ask and learn and adapt from that. And the same with everything that we've created. Like all of our products have been created because we asked our existing customers, what do you want? We listened and we're like, okay, yeah, we can create that. And so I think that's a really big piece that a lot of entrepreneurs focus on, like, oh, new customer, versus, oh, these people really know, like, and trust me already. How can I serve them better? Because otherwise they're going to go to somewhere else who actually might not be as good as me. And so we're doing a disservice if we don't provide those existing clients that we have who are asking us for more products. We don't go and create them. So
I fundamentally do not believe that you can have a business that is successful in the long term if you don't have a product that delivers what it says it delivers. At some point, you just cannot scale that. And so we would never dream of launching a product that hasn't been tested in so many different ways and we know gets results and knows works. That's why we launch so few products, because every single thing we put out there we test rigorously, because your reputation is on the line. And you know, one of your biggest levers to scale in the beginning when you're not even thinking about it is someone going to recommend this to a friend, or is this really working? If it's not working, you just can't scale it. There's not going to be enough people out there, or there's going to be people that just say, you know what, I didn't get results, this didn't work for me. And I think you shouldn't be building products if you don't care. You shouldn't be trying to do this thing if you don't care about it working. So first, figure out what it is, that MVP that doesn't, like we said, it doesn't have to look fancy, it doesn't have to be shiny, but it works. It's so good that it works. People are not going to say, you should join, you know, the website's really ugly, but the content works. So they're just going to tell you it works, join it. And I really think that's the foundation of all of it.
And I always say, like, if you're not making mistakes, you're not moving forward. What have been like the 3 most critical, biggest mistakes that you have made so far in this business that we can learn from?
I can share one. I won't share the exact rule, but we did hire a role that was a real nice to have, and in fact ended up turning out to be a money pit. So we thought that it would be really good to spend on a certain thing that we weren't seeing an ROI on, and we thought would be this long-term play, and we really put all of our eggs in that basket. And both of our intuitions kept telling us this is not the right play, this is not the right play. And it took us a really long time to learn that lesson. And looking back, it was a very, very, very expensive lesson. And so I really
Was it hard to finally say, like, all right, this is not working? Like, you just kept kind of staying?
It was, yeah. It's kind of every month longer that we went with it, the harder it was to pull back and say, this isn't working, this wasn't the right decision. And I think it can be sometimes really hard to look back and say, I really messed up there, I shouldn't have done that, and I've lost so much money. But the minute we did it, it was again like a huge weight. So that was a big one. We lost a lot of money, but I'm really glad we had the lesson, because we've seen a lot of other companies invest in that specific thing that, you know, we thought it would be worthwhile, and actually doing it, it's showed us that it just wasn't the right thing to do for us.
Plus it saves down the road too, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Now when you go to like make that next decision again, you're like, you remember that, and although you lost a lot of money there, you probably saved a lot more in the future doing it when it costs you more, because your company is way bigger.
And that's the thing, like, you know, we spoke about earlier, does it happen to you or does it happen for you? And
like,
actually, like,
I lost money.
Yeah, I genuinely try not to dwell on things that have not gone necessarily the way I had thought they would, because 9 times out of 10, something else has come in front of it anyway that's been like, oh, this is actually working out better.
But what is one that you would say? Because we still have had loads.
Yeah.
Well,
We learn from them, but we
that's
have a
the
lot.
thing. Like, there's loads of things that I would do differently. I think for me, the number one thing is there's a ton of things I would do differently, and they tend to come down to not listening to my intuition at the time.
Wow.
Really, if I'm really brutally honest, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've lost money by going, I had inklings and I did not follow them, and I was either scared of backing out of something. I think that's one of my biggest mistakes, that I've let things go on too far before going, actually, do you know what, this is not right, and I need to just go with my gut. This is like the deviation. So I feel like there's nothing like specific that I'm like,
I have more.
share more, like, go for it. I feel like
I
mine's
like
just,
the specifics. I think
to
it's good to share
my
the specifics.
intuition.
Yeah, because I think for people listening, I want them to know we do fail a lot. Even though we do learn from it, we do fail a lot. We once got into a business partnership that was the worst decision ever. We had some kind of imposter syndrome. where we both thought they could do it way better than we could. And so instead of us spending time and resources hiring, training, and doing it ourselves, we decided to outsource a full part of our business to another company, and it was a disaster. They let our customers down. Operationally, it was a shit show, and we lost a lot of money in that deal. So that was one of them. And then another one of them, in the beginning, like I said, when I built that website, I was really just Googling things and putting things together. And so we actually built a membership website, and when we launched, we had an incredibly successful launch, more than we could have ever imagined. We had thousands of members join, and the next month the payment system didn't work, which meant we had thousands of payments that didn't go through. That's a lot of money for a startup that is 2 months into business. And I was in South Africa at the time. I was speaking at an event, and I started to see this, and I was like, this isn't feeling right. We should be seeing more recurring payments come in, and I'm not seeing them. And fixing that was definitely a headache. I was on a phone to anyone that could help and support me, and like thankfully we got that sorted, and we've had that once since with another system. But there's always going to be payment errors, there's always going to be tech errors, there's going to be bad hires, there's going to be bad partnerships. There are going to be so many things that go wrong that cost you time, money, peace, all of it. Like you said, that we can learn from it, but it's going to happen.
But I think this is just a really good highlight on our personalities as well, because Natalie remembers this stuff.
Everything.
As does my husband. Me, I'm like literally, those in operations is you're always like constantly putting out fires. Something's always going wrong, and I just like get used to them. Like, who says this? Slipping off my shoulders. They just come.
I say that about.
They slide off. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That did happen.
Yeah.
And there's been a ton of things. Like we've had payment issues. We've had email issues. Oh, we had, like, for those of you who use Zendesk, this one time we had all our Zendesks being like all the emails diverted out of Gmail, and then we found out as well there's this common issue with Zendesk where some emails get missed and they go into this certain folder and you don't know about them.
Oh,
so we
wow.
uncovered like 300 emails like 6 months after that we had no idea about, and I was like rang somebody who was actually in business. She's like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. I'm like, Zendesk should put a warning on this, you know. So there's literally apps. Yeah, there's tons.
Wow. So yeah, no, good. I'm glad that gives it.
But you laugh about it now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's just part of the journey, you know. You're just
you don't make a mistake twice.
Putting out fires. It's like every day, every week. It's like new levels, new devils.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I had tendencies to try and be a perfectionist before being an entrepreneur. You'll let go of that. If you strive for perfection, one quote that I really had to get on board with is like, if it's 80% perfect, it's done. And just realizing that actually there's never going to be 100%.
Yeah.
And things can always go wrong, and just realizing that, oh, okay, this is just a challenge, this is testing me today. And I always really try and make sure my day is not overbooked, so that I have room for the fires that tend to go off, and that's okay. It's just part of life, part of the role.
What has been the difference between when you were like 6 to 7 figures to like 7 to 8 figures? I'm sure you're like, I already know the real goal, right, is like even beyond 9, 10, is build $1 billion company. But for you, so like, what has been the biggest difference in the way that you had to lead and build this company, being a 7-figure company versus going to that next level, which is going to 8 and 9?
A big shift that I've noticed for me is stop exchanging time for money. When you get to a certain level, you just can't scale your time. You really can't. And so in the beginning of your business, I think in the beginning of a business, you should take every opportunity. You should follow all the paths, jump on the magic carpet and see where the ride takes you, because it helps you to really figure out what sticks in your business and what doesn't, because not every idea you have is going to work out. And the ideas you think might not work out actually could end up really working out. So I think in the beginning phases, when you're getting up to that 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, and you're starting to hit 7, you're still testing lots of different things. But when you're really wanting to scale, it's about, okay, how can I scale something beyond my time, so things are a lot more passive, more automated. That's been a really, really big shift for us. And so for me, I've had to really change how I spend my time. Things used to be a lot more high touch, and I used to love working with people
like
a lot
the
more.
coaching and
yeah. And when you're scaling, I think that's a lot harder to do, because for us, we love to work with early stage entrepreneurs. It's our passion, because we remember where we were when we wanted to start a business or we're in the beginning beginning stages of starting our business. And so it's not really, I can't see us doing masterminds and like really expensive working with us, but we know if we're doing that time swap to work with us would be really expensive if we were doing coaching. So we fully moved away from the coaching model and actually have decided to scale products that we believe can help entrepreneurs, especially in the earlier stages, or we can help entrepreneurs get that, you know, that inspiration or the resources when they need it versus feeling like they need to work with us constantly. So we've really transitioned our business to be more of an educational platform than a coaching company or an e-learning company. It's very much how can we provide content that's really, really scalable to help millions of women versus having to trade our time with it.
Yeah. And just building on that on a personal and a business level, I think the key difference for me is going from those 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, is like you kind of said, you say yes a lot. So if I think of my personal role, it was me diving in. Yes, I'll go and fix that. Yes, I will do these things. Or yes, we'll do that thing, that service for you over there because that's actually going to make us money. So it's yes, 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 yes. And then as we've grown, as we scaled, it's no, I'm not going to do that. We're going to either find a system to do that or a member of the team to do that. Actually, no, we're not going to do all these products now. We're going to focus on these products. So our days have shifted from saying more yeses versus nos to say now our best days, the more times we say no, the better. Like
it's
that's
so funny
what's better for us to scale.
Thank you for because that is, we always think that we need to be doing so much more, and we've actually learned, there's an actually study on this, that the biggest difference between a Fortune 500 CEO versus a Fortune 100 CEO, it really comes down to the Fortune 100 CEO just says no more, right? So it's like, what can you do less of? Simplifying and really optimizing and maximizing that thing that already works and doing it really well, rather than trying to do so much. Because I know what that feels like being an entrepreneur. It's like trying to do it all, right? Yeah. And you start doing less and just doing it better and doubling down on that. So it's really, really cool. A few more, because I have a couple more, and then this is probably the longest interview we've ever done, but it's been so valuable and so awesome. So I'm gonna keep it going. One, so I feel like you work with a lot of women that are looking to finally give themselves a voice. They're ready to finally like own their voice and also brand themselves. So like, what tips do you have for someone who, you know, is finally stepping into, it's a woman who's like owning their voice, stepping forward, wants to build a profitable personal brand for themselves. Like, what advice would you give to them to finally start to really grow that audience and more importantly than the followers, like turn it into a profitable business for themselves to create freedom?
I think when you're starting to develop a personal brand or wanting to build a community, it can be really easy to look at what other people have done and try to mirror theirs for yours. And yes, that might work to an extent, but I really don't think that's the success of having a personal brand. That's not what's going to get you the success. And so I really think it comes down to figuring out what makes you different, because there are a lot of personal brands out there, but the space isn't saturated. There's a difference between there being a lot of something and saturation. There is still space for personal brands that are really unique. And so it's figuring out what makes you unique, and are you willing to put your full weird self out there and claim those things that make you different. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is when you're building a community, again, it can be really easy to look at people with millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers and kind of neglect the audience you've got because it's not big enough. Oh, I'm not going to share this or do this because I only have 100 followers or 1,000 followers or 10, whatever number it is. But if you're not treating that community that you already have the way you would treat a community of 100,000, you're going to really struggle to build a consistent personal brand. I'm a big fan of building your brands organically. I think that's a really, really good way to see if you have something that sticks. Are people talking about it? You know, are people excited about this? And doing that means you're getting feedback constantly, you're showing up consistently, and you're showing up hard for however many people that you have in there. So I really recommend that. And then one thing that I don't recommend, which a lot of people will probably disagree with me with, is having a niche right away, or a niche, they say in America. Having a niche, if you have one, great. If you don't, I see so many people being held back by this. I don't have a niche, so I can't go and do it. I can't go and get started. I think that's an excuse. I think that's really stopping you from taking action. Whereas if you just take action and you put one foot in front of the other, your niche is going to present itself to you. You're going to figure out what resonates with people, what resonates with you, what you enjoy talking about, what you don't. And that's really going to help you find your footing. So if you don't have one, don't let it put you off. Just go ahead and build anyway. And I think it just comes from showing up consistently, being willing to put your full self out there, and whatever you enjoy, whatever you get a good response with, do more of that.
Yeah, powerful. Yeah, I love that. Danny, would you like to add anything? Or good today?
No, I think Natalie's perspective on it, and it's really as well, like, you know, she shared some amazing tips, but it's really deciding like whether that's truly what you want to do as well. You know, I think there's two sides to that as well. Like, that is for everybody, but it's also not the only way to build a business.
For sure.
I mean, it's not for you.
Exactly.
You can speak
That's why
to
I'm
that.
not gonna add any tips, because I choose not to. I don't feel like I want to build the personal brand side of it like Natalie does, particularly not on Instagram anyway.
Yeah.
I think mine evolves, and I think really I just want to allow, I think it's very easy in today's society, whether you are a creator on social media or a consumer, you see all the creators, right? They're the people who are putting the content, so it's very easy to think, oh, that's the only way to do it, because a lot of the time you're just surrounding yourself with that version of the reality, whereas actually there's so many other ways to build businesses and to build net worth. And I think just really allowing yourself the space to go, actually, is this really true to who I am? Or am I trying to put a cloak on and make something work? Because I can see very easily other people doing it, where it's not as easy to see the people behind the scenes. And just really allowing that space to go, okay. Because I genuinely feel like when you're in alignment with your business, that's when, you know, you're going to feel fulfilled. That's when it's not about the destination that you're going to be happy. You're happy on the journey. And I think being honest, first of all, with yourself about what you want to create is part of the challenge. And then if you decide, yes, I want to build a personal brand, that's right up my alley, I cannot wait to do that, then you can go all in.
Woo! That was so good. See, I'm so glad you gave that perspective, because it's so true, right? Like, it's not for everyone, but it's so easy for us, right, to be on Instagram and be seeing everyone else out there that's like an influential entrepreneur or leader or coach, whatever, and thinking like that's the way. And it is. It's a totally a way, but it doesn't need to be your way. And what's interesting is many people don't know this about me, because like they've seen the Gerard Adams over the last 4 or 5 years launching this show. But before that, even with Elite Daily, I let my business do the talking. You know, like Boss Babes building that community. You don't necessarily need to have that personal brand, and there are ways for you to still create that net worth, that success, these relationships. I have so many friends that are not active with building a personal brand, but they are so powerful, and they're just, you know, amazing human beings and doing amazing things in the world. So don't think that that's your only way. And then also, to Natalie's point, it's about just truly showing your authentic self. What is your truth? If you do decide to do that, then don't do it based on what other people think who you need to be. Completely share who you really are at the core. What is your truth? What are the things that you've gone through in your life? And, you know, think about the fact that, like, I think it's interesting, because I agree that you don't necessarily need a niche. You know, I typically tell people, what are your 5 pillars? You know, and for me, it's like spirituality and leadership and entrepreneurship, but also family and travel, and, you know, there's storytelling. What are those 5 things for you that are these pieces of you that you want to open up and share more of to your audience? So really, really powerful tips. I want to know, what has been a moment for you of pure joy that almost was a moment of like emotional crying? Because I feel like there's a moment, you're there, I feel you have already had this, because it's been years. I know if I've had moments like this in my career, where it's either a letter in the mail, or it's a woman who goes on stage that you called up, or maybe it's a phone call you had, or maybe, who knows, an email. I don't know what that moment was, but what's been a moment for you? And it may be personal, it may not even be necessarily with the community, but if you both can give me like a moment where you really had the utmost gratitude that God has given you this opportunity to be a vessel for what you're creating in the world.
So for me, we run events, and we had an event with hundreds of women in the room, and our events are not the kind of events where you pull your phone out and do social media. It's very much a container of deep transformation, and we really help you figure out what are you passionate about, what's your purpose, and how do we get you to that next level. And we bring in amazing thought leaders and experts, and it's very much that container. And we did an event, we had hundreds of women in the room, and seeing the transformation that some women made over the course of that day, I could cry thinking about it. I stood on stage crying, and I went backstage crying, and I just couldn't believe the transformation that I was seeing, and understanding the impact that had on women's lives, and not just their lives, their families' lives, their kids' lives, their friends' lives, their employees' lives, the ripple effect that you have in that moment. Because it's easy when you're on social media to often forget the impact you're having when you're posting a story or something, because you're not seeing how it impacts someone else's life. That day on that event, I remember just having full body chills, and I just couldn't stop crying seeing that impact, and just thinking to myself, I never want to stop doing this. This work is so powerful and important. And I could cry so easily about it because I go back to that moment all the time whenever we're having those conversations around, should we create this, or why are we doing this? It always goes back for me to that moment where I remember what we created and why it's so important, and I create from that place.
I've got goosebumps. You're so right. It was just the most magical experience. And I think, I've always been that, my background was in chiropractic, and it's always been so much to me to help other people. And that really is, it does sound a little bit cheesy, but that really is why we keep going. But there's two things I want to share. One is every single Monday we have a whole company meeting. And so we come on and we have a slide deck. So we talk through things that are going on in the company, we share wins from various departments, and we share learnings. And then the third slide, which is on there, is our impact slide. And every single Monday, we put screenshots in there, snapshots in there of impact that we have had of women in our community and how we've changed their lives, and we read them out. Because it really is, when we talk about that listening and learning, we were those women. We want to help women who are exactly in the same positions as we were in. And if we can do it, so can they. And just seeing, like you say, that ripple effect that it has. These are not just comments it's helped me make this much money. It's helped me make this much money, and I've been able to support my family through X, Y, and Z. And also, I've met people that have completely changed my life, and they've been my business besties, and they've supported me through X. It's just so incredible that I just feel so fortunate to be in this position, and I'm so excited about what we can create moving forwards. And I think it's nice to be a part of a company that we can stand so wholeheartedly with and say we're trying our best, and we are here to create a positive impact in the world.
Wow, beautiful. Wow. I want to wrap it up. You always ask to really just get your thing. First of all, thank you so much for, again, sharing those moments, because it's just beautiful to kind of just hear that that's your heart, that is, I think when I think conscious leadership, I think leading from the heart. And that's what we need more of in the world. We need businesses that are out there that are truly creating transformation and helping to push humanity forward, and to, create inclusion and unity and love and freedom, and give hope and possibility, and give real ways that people can actually activate their purpose and their passion, and this birthright that we all have, to have abundance and to have it all, right? But somehow along our journey, we start to forget. And I want to just say thank you so much for sharing again with me today, for sharing with all of us. This has been so inspirational. And I remember I don't know if it was that same event, but I remember coming to one of your events, and I was blown away by the amount of women that were in this room, and I'll never forget the feeling that I had, because it was I wear a bracelet, and on it I learned this from a really special angel that came into my life, Natalie, who taught me of this concept called mudita. And Modita is a Sanskrit that means to celebrate the success of others with joy, without envy. And there was this moment like where I just remember looking around the room and all of these women were like so like, you know, sit up, involved, and like just everyone, it wasn't just you, it was like everyone in there cared about the success of the person to the right of them and the person to the left of them. There was no hierarchy, there was no judgment, there was no feelings of like, you know, envy. It was like everyone was, you know, people were crying, these women were opening up about their deepest fears, and everyone was just building each other up. And really, I saw transformation happening, and I think it's, you know, just so dope, so cool, and still just the beginning, and it's an honor to know both of you. You know, so leadership, as you know, is everything for me. Our show is about leaders creating leaders, and I think leadership is changing in the world today, and both of you being conscious leaders and creating Boss Babe. I just want to know, and what is your definition right now of a great leader?
Oh, good question. I think for me, it's somebody who, this is the way I see leadership anyway, it's someone who leads with heart, with good intention, and they're able to accept a hand in front of them, and they also have one behind. I think that's what leadership is for me. It's about, like, you know, seeing that you don't always know that every single answer, but also that people need to hear your voice and you can help people along the way to achieve that. I think for me in this moment, that's what I would define leadership as.
Love that.
For me, right now, leadership is being able to bring others into that leadership. So whether it's, you know, our team, our community, my friends, my family, the people that I know, I want to help bring other people into the leadership that they are looking for. And that's something that we intentionally do every single day. And that to me is the most fulfilling thing in the world.
So beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Again, you guys are just building such an empire, and I love it. And I know how hard it is to get them to actually take some time away
to go on video.
You know, so they got their boundaries, they got the business, they got, you know, and you have not done many videos. So to allow us at Leaders Create Leaders to hold space for you and share. This is something we'll look back on for many, many, many years. So please make sure to go and connect with the co-founders of Boss Babe, Danielle and Natalie. Get involved with their community. It is so special. And again, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you for watching this episode with Natalie and Danielle of Boss Babe. It was so powerful. And if you enjoyed it and had any takeaways, do me a favor and comment below and let us know. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure to also follow Boss Babe, follow Leaders Create Leaders, and make sure to also check out our other episodes of Leaders Create Leaders. We have so many new powerful episodes in season 6 that are going to be coming out. And thank you for being a part of our community. Remember, this is more than just a show. It's a movement. Let's get it.